I've always been a fan of Sonic as a kid. I remember being one of those kids who argued about console wars between Sega and Nintendo before Sega inevitably stopped production. Needless to say, I took that rough as a kid. Nowadays, I more just indulge myself in the hedgehog as a hobby. Running a small YouTube channel covering the comics, games, or pretty much any Sonic news in general. Some call me a bit of a Sonic fanboy, and I'll admit it, I am. Even if I am a little too old for this. Pretty much all my friends have started families, settled down. Meanwhile, over here, just me and my little fixations. However, after what happened in the story, I doubt I'll ever touch a piece of Sonic media again. It was a normal day. I finished on my day job working at the same old dingy store with the same old dickhead of a manager. My thoughts were overcome with frustration, yet that all faded when I pulled into my driveway and I noticed a box on my doorstep. It didn't look like it came from any sort of official delivery service, but more of something someone had done in their own time around a box they found in their attic. I could even see some dust that wasn't blown off, and the outline of a hand which was oddly thin. Looking back on it makes my blood run cold, but in the moment, I didn't think anything of it. Opened the box right there in the open. If it was something like anthrax, at least there would be my neighbor who'd mowed his lawn endlessly to see and maybe get me help quickly. Honestly, wished it was. Be less stress for me in the end. I saw instead a small USB and a note. Both looked like they were chucked inside. Nothing else residing within. I decided to pull out the note once I was sat inside. Box to my side on the couch with the USB still sitting lazily within. The note read as such. Hey Adam, it's me, Simon. The older friend from all those years back. I got my hands on this weird Sonic game prototype. Not a big Sonic fanatic, but I recall all those times you gush over any Sonic news, so I think it's better in your hands. Not sure which game it's meant for when I opened it. Didn't show any sort of specifics, though, through any graphics or gameplay. The file size is definitely too big for Sonic 1. And from all the times you nerd out about specific details. That I'm sure of. Either way, enjoy it, my old friend. Damn, that brings back old memories. If only I knew. Without much fun on my end, I put that USB into my PC. Also, an idiot move on my end. It could have been a virus or some crap. And again, I trusted it just by association with Simon. Doubt anybody would hit the ultimate bingo of guessing my best friend's name. Guessing I had an affinity for Sonic content. It really brought up Simon and Ivor in online spaces, so I doubted how an obsessive troll was behind this. When I turned on my PC, oddly enough, the program was already open. A red flag, but it wasn't doing anything malicious. Yet. Honestly, should have pulled it out, but at this point, if it did something bad, it was already set in stone, and it had a shitload of backups anyways. Just as Simon had written, the title screen had no indication of its name. Meanwhile, this window name was just Sonic.Exe. Just a bring-in banner, no text or anything. Copyright wasn't even there yet. The background, lake and hills, looked done though. That'd probably be later in the development timeline, but hey, it was still during the time that games were finding their swings, so maybe it was a development hell and we all just never knew. I pressed enter and it promptly entered the Green Hill Zone. Kinda convenient that everything was already rigged, so I didn't have to do any key binding. Again, a red flag, but again, as an idiot, I didn't think anything of it. There's no opening title card, it just jump cut. into Green Hill Zone. Sonic looked meh. He had no animations, he just slid along, which was mildly amusing. No enemies though, neither rings. Kinda made everything look empty and dead, even a bit airy. What was most bizarre was, again, Sonic. His body was off, his spikes were too long, his eyes were too small, and he had a visible mouth which looked like a weird, uncomfortable grin. He generally looked like he'd become the new guest on the show Botched. The stage's format seemed to be the first game's Green Hill Zone. Now, that was particular considering Simon stated the file size was too big, and looking into my files, it was indeed too big to be the original Sonic 1. Well, I ended up trying to open Task Manager to maybe close it, set it for later, but didn't open. Nothing. Alt F4 didn't work either. Great, it was a virus. Someone was a bit of a prick, but he never meant actual ill intent. Honestly, I should have just called it there, ditched it, but my own blind fascination with this mysterious USB made me not question a thing. I decided to simply go for the stage and just simply accept that the window wasn't going to close unless I decide to restart my PC with the USB out. Saw Sonic sliding a lot awkwardly as a single sprite. Something odd happened. Instead of seeing Eggman at the stage or maybe some placeholder, I saw Tails. It looked normal. Heck, it was fully animated. Why in God's name would you animate a character from a game not even conceptualized before your title character? Before long, things took a drastic turn. No more small hints. Sonic began to move. Not as in sliding, but animating. His gloves covering his eyes, and as he pulled away, I was in shock. Right where his unanswered Cyclops-like eye would be usually, instead was 2 eyeballs. They looked like those images you'd see in medical booklets photoshopped on. See the red at their edges, the bloodshot sclera. Slowly turned to the screen. At this point, Sonic, if it could even be referred to as that, it pointed at Tails. Initially I was confused for text using different assets across the game that even some that would have been there even in the title screen that showed Green Hill said Chase. And seeing that there was no other option, path backwards being a solid invisible wall, I pressed D and it rushed forward. Now, this is what gets me the most. Well, aside from what happens to me specifically. It cut to CCTV footage, and to be frank, what I saw was mortifying. I saw a man, his leg mangled, being slowly followed by a man in a suit, crude Sonic costume, wielding a cleaver. Luckily, before the cleaver struck as it raised and got swung, it changed back to the game. Tails was gone. Finally, in the middle of the stage was a signpost. Tentatively, I touched the controls and Sonic ran into it. The screen turning to black for at least over a minute. Not certain, however. But before long, it cut to Scrap Brain Zone. This time I seemed to be in control of Knuckles. And just like Tails, he was fine and fully animated. I decided to just do what I did last time. Just walk forward. Considering the footage, which I was most definitely planning on forwarding to the police. I just wanted to know as much as I could, maybe spare a random rookie from seeing this horror. Before long, I saw Sonic. It feels wrong calling it that. It just stared. Knowing that Knuckles was a lot more of a fighter than Tails, I charged for it. Before it collided, though, Knuckles seemed to have a face of terror. I made a similar jump cut to the Tails, more CCTV footage appearing. This one more disturbing. It was longer. It was just ages of a man gripping his neck as blood gushed from it, writhing on the floor as the same man in the crude Sonic costume watched. Still as a statue, the man drowning in his own blood. Dear God. What was most peculiar was the room. It seemed to be a living room, a computer to the side with Sonic open. I couldn't make out who the guy was. Black box covering over his face just to conceal his identity. But I recognized a small detail. A tattoo on his arm. One of a hand holding a wrench. Simon said he always wanted a tattoo like that. Oh shit. Finally, it made one last jump cut. This time, I wasn't in control. That Sonic thing was just walking. Its resemblance to Sonic was now minimal. Just the head. The eyes and now a mouth was just hovering over the head of Sonic. Body was now completely different. Instead of being the pixel art or cartoony body, it was a malformed, charred body in the same style as the eyes and mouth. Its proportions were all out of whack as well, stumbling forward with a limp. Eyes, mouth, and body moving at a higher frame rate than average for a Sonic in this era of games. Or, I knew it, I saw Eggman. Sitting blissfully unaware of the terror behind him. Before it even made contact, the program, it opened my webcam. Immediately, without hesitation, I ran from my bed, reaching under for a metal baseball bat I kept around just in case of a break-in. Through the speakers of my computer, I heard a voice. Do you want to play with me? It said, its voice strained. As I turned to face it, I saw its face. Exclusively its face. Just the eyes and mouth that had previously hovered above Sonic's head, just in a void. Teeth in a grimace, those eyes, those bloodshot eyes, peering into my soul. It continued. It's simple. I count to 3, and you hide. Just keep this interesting for me. It cackled maniacally with a cough before I heard a window shatter below me. I immediately ran for my wardrobe, forcing myself between it and the wall to push it over to block the door. Contemplating jumping out my window, go to my neighbors, I heard him, his fist bang against the door, shouting the same phrase over and over. You're too slow. His voice. I'll never forget it at this point. The door, despite the barricades, was beginning to budge open. I don't know how a human could physically have that much amount of strength. The wardrobe scraping across the ground as it was pushed. Before I knew it, I saw him, crude Sonic costume, cleaver in hand, singing wildly through the small gap. I ran for my window trying to open it, yet it wouldn't budge. I couldn't break my window as the grid that held went through the window would not give me enough space to slip out. I turned, the man frantically clambering over and rushing at me. In a moment, fueled by adrenaline, I swung, back colliding with the man's head, causing him to stumble over and fall. I took my chance, running through the opening he made, running out my house and going to my neighbor's. I'd like to say that he was caught. Unfortunately, he fled the scene before police arrived. To this day, I fear what could have happened to me. So I moved. Far away. I shall not say where, as in just in case that killer is reading this, and to that man, if he indeed is reading this, you're sick. I hope that if there is a God, he gives you a special place in hell where you writhe endlessly on the ground, a slit throat forever gushing blood onto brimstone as it sears your flesh, just as you did the same to my friend. In the end, I've been having therapy to forget this, but it's had minimal success. My doctor says writing this all out will give me closure. Sure hope so. Overall, I think I've had enough Sonic for a lifetime.